Well, folks, the return of Clocking the Gallop got out of the starting blocks just recently because, of course, we honoured the great Derek Thompson, Tomo Racing, and he retired earlier on this week at Wolverhampton. But quick on the heels of Tomo is a real South African legend. And if you don't believe us, then you'll see the news, and it's all going to be celebrated this weekend. And that is that Mike De Kock joins us because he is the latest inductee into the South African Sports Hall of Fame. Mike De Kock, Nico and I welcome you to the show. And the first word is congratulations. What an achievement.
Thank you, Neil. Honestly, yeah, it's quite overwhelming. It is really special to be recognized by your country, for your contribution to the industry you're in. But it is, I've been fortunate enough to have received a few accolades in racing, but I must admit that this is, when you really sit down and think of it and you look at the names that are in that Hall of Fame, you realize the privilege you are.
But Neil, well, Nico's going to, Nico, just before you do, one last thing before I hand over to you, because I know it'll mean the world to Mike, is that you've followed Ormond. I mean, a man who really set you on your way. And that's, I think that's, for you, probably says it all, that you are in the same Hall of Fame as the great Ormond Ferraris.
Yes, and of course, as I look back on the years, the moments, the turning points, the people, that's whole career was basically a puzzle put together, and that these all these pieces in this puzzle. And of course, Ormond Ferraris was probably the first piece, in that he gave me my chance and my introduction into racing. And what an introduction. I mean, you couldn't want a better grounding. I mean, a harder man, more disciplined man you couldn't find. And if I even look back at my system today that I run, a lot of it is what I learned from him. So while a lot's evolved, a lot is still the same.
Let's face it, Mike, you deserve the award, and you deserve to be inducted, mainly because of what not only you've done as Mike De Kock for your individual self, but also for the country. You've been a great ambassador for our country. You've taken our racehorses the length and breadth of the entire world and excelled. It must be great to look back on those years. And I'm not saying you're not capable of doing it again, because I think you're perfectly capable of taking more South African horses and winning overseas. But you must be looking back on your exploits in all these other countries with fond memories, Mike, because you took them on, you weren't scared to take them on, and you've beaten them.
Yeah, Nico, it's almost, because a man's been reflecting now in the last few days, you're thinking of, what to say, what are the right things to say, and you start reflecting on this time, especially abroad. And I really think it was more like an adventure than anything else. It was, I mean, the stories are just, how do you if you've got to make a 10-minute speech about your career and whatever, I could honestly keep people entertained for 10 hours on some of the stories. And and the people and where you've went, and the racing in different countries. That first night in World Cup, that first World Cup night, just mind-boggling. Just blows you away. You're sort of overawed by it all. I was actually quite emotional after that first night, because it was just a crazy night. The initial intentions going abroad was personal, but you soon realized after a year or two, actually you're representing your country. And with that came the added pressure of, first you arrive there and you're from obscure country, not an obscure country, but in terms of racing, no one really took South Africa that serious. And so you win a couple of races, rah, well done. Next year, you win a couple of races, rah, yeah, well done. Next year, they're looking at you as the man to beat. All of a sudden, that whole mindset changed, and so did the pressures that come along with it, But it soon became apparent that the selfish reasons of yourself wanting to travel and for your own self and family and patrons, you eventually you became an ambassador. That is for sure. You whether you call it self-appointed or whatever. It just became that way, that you are now the South African trainer and representing South Africa.
Mike, this is a brief congratulations, but now that you've told us that, which doesn't surprise me, I suspect that at some point in time, after the season's finished, because you've got a busy day on the weekend, we need to get you for an elongated, X-rated version, because we'd love to hear those stories. I suspect they belong in the old
Sure.
Super Saturday days. I think they're probably not going to be too woke, but we love to hear them. And this
They
is
belong in the bar, Neil. They belong in the bar. That's where they should stay.
Well, we'd love to hear them one way or another. But the other thing about it that I just want to put into perspective, I told Nico this, when I was preparing and doing the homework, and I started to check your numbers, and I had to remind myself of how successful you've been. When you look at somebody who I grew up with, many of us in our generation grew up with Terence Millard's numbers, and you've blown those out of the water. I mean, some time ago. So again, I touched on the Ormond Ferraris element of it, but when you've put somebody of the stature of Terence Millard and you're continuing to train, and I agree with Nico, by the way, we had another discussion about that. We want to pay your airfare to take some horses overseas for us, because we still think you're the man for the job.
Absolutely.
Yeah, look, I mean, he was a role model for sure, Terence Millard. Once always looked at him and his stable as, the benchmark for me for all South African trainers. But, he was unable, I suppose, because of circumstances to compete abroad. So it was a little difficult. But, as for the future, I mean, look, at 61, you do slow down a bit, don't get me wrong. You're not so gung-ho anymore. You don't have the cojones that you used to have when you were 40, 20,
Yeah,
35,
but you're probably
40.
more wily. You're more wily, more experienced, and that's a big plus. Because...
But you also sometimes think about, in those days I didn't used to think about what could go wrong or about losing or whatever. You just didn't want to know. You know what I mean? You were very, very confident. But if I get the right horse, I'm in for it. That's for sure. There's no doubt about it. Matthew's definitely, and it's now possible because just remember when I did travel, I always had a pretty good team at home that kept things going, and you couldn't do it without that. Otherwise, you'd lose one change room for the other. So and I mean, as the team is now evolving again. I mean, those days I used to travel a lot when Matthew was an assistant, who eventually took over from Nathan and John and Quinton and the guys that used to help me. Yeah, and it was him and I. I mean, it went pretty well, definitely.
But Mike, you mentioned
we could do it again now as a team for sure.
You mentioned team, right? I mean, you just have to look around currently about all these people that have worked for you. I mean, I'd even thought of John and Nathan and Quinton. You've got Frikkie Grayling training. You've got
early days.
Masawi has taken out his license now. Alson and Zalanis.
Yes.
Even the guys that are working with you, Michael, who had his birthday today, and David, who's here on the high file working with Matthew. I mean, you've got to be bloody proud that all these guys have ticked all the boxes, have worked with you, or are still currently working with you, and that they have that De Kock magic with them. You've imparted that onto them.
Nico, it's something that Diane and I've also really been about from day one, and especially now because you start thinking about leaving some sort of legacy and really leaving your mark on the game. And I really enjoy empowering people and watching them grow. And with all the traveling, I liked to empower the assistants. I liked them to feel part of the team, treat their business, my business, as their own, which they did. And if they didn't move on with me, they had to move on. If the team was evolving, and I felt that assistant wasn't evolving as the team was, I let them go, even though they've been with me 15, 16 years. You know what I mean? That really had to happen. But I'm all about empowering guys, and especially these guys come from a previously disadvantaged backgrounds. There's such talent amongst them. You've got no idea. And, you know, in the early days of our youth and the old South Africa, we actually used to be quite blind to it, if you think of it, you know. But once you really know these people and once you get involved with them and you allow them to show you what they've got, it's amazing what
the results
what
are.
you can unearth. These are, you know, there's diamonds out there, and these people really need this opportunity to grow. Sometimes it takes a little longer because, you know, of circumstances. Some of them are very limited in terms of the education they've had, but they are smart. They are really, really, really smart guys. And it is fantastic to watch guys like Olsen and Vengi evolve now. I really think they are two talented men. I mean, Vengi today, I actually felt sorry for him that I had to come and blow him out of the water for his first winner. But, you know, it's just, that's the game. I mean, he would have felt even better his first winner if he had beaten me. So, but he's a young man that's been given a super opportunity with Hollywood right now. And he's a very talented horseman and an intelligent human being. He used to do a lot of my office computer work. I didn't even know how to, you know, use the computer, do the printing. And I mean, Wenger used to do all that kind of stuff. So immense potential and great to see them. And I just wish, you know, a bloke like Olsen would get more opportunity because he is a horseman. He used to keep Joey Ramsden stable going. You know, he was a solid foundation member of that stable. And he's a man that's got talent but needs an opportunity to show that talent.
I've got
and
just
I'm
two
proud of
more
that fact,
questions.
you know,
Yeah, and you should be absolutely proud of that because Nico's right. The legacy is there to see. Two quick questions from me, and then I just want you to remind us of how many Group 1 numbers you're on at the moment, because and I suppose, I mean, whether we still count Matthew's one as part of yours, I'm sure we do. But two things about it. I'm glad you mentioned Di, because Diane just brings so much, you know, from her own pedigree. From her dad and the horse racing experience and her own riding. And when I've had horses with you, frequently I interface with Diane, and it's always a pleasure. She's brilliant with the 2-year-olds. So I'm glad you mentioned that. The other thing I want to bring up, and it's said in, I think, the Sporting Post piece, that you've always been a straight shooter. And, you know, I've loved that, even though at times, Michael, I've been on the receiving end of that tongue. Which is probably once or twice a word that also belongs in the bar. But I thought you kept calling me Gavin Hunt. I knew it rhymed with that. But I think that's when I said I didn't like Igugu for one race or another. But you know what?
yeah.
I appreciate it because your honesty is there for everybody. And in this game, honesty and straightforwardness, I think, is what you need when you're dealing with horses. So I thank you for that. But I guess at times you must have thought maybe I'm a bit too straightforward to get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, look, yeah, well, you know, thankfully it's on performance and not on personality. So yeah, I mean, I do believe in trying being as honest as I can be with people, and I'm very happy to receive it. You can call me what you like, you know what I mean? It doesn't really matter to me. But you know, it's a game with it's just so much BS, you know, left, right, and center. So many false, so many dishonest people. It's the one thing when I first came into the game that I really, well, I mean, Ormond Farrar was a very straight shooter and a hard man. And when you get that grounding, and then you see the other side where you find these insincere people and you know, people that just you know, just telling the truth is just it's not something they can do. You realize that for me, the right way is only to be honest about things and straight about things. Yeah, sometimes it can be brutal, and I do. Of course, I've made mistakes, plenty of mistakes, being probably too brutal and too honest about things. And you know, you do incur the wrath of those in charge of you, because sometimes they don't appreciate it. They don't appreciate that. But I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't do it different in the game. I may regret a few things I said to people, but you know what? So what? They'll get over it. I've got over things people have said to me. So we all move on. You know, as we get older, we live with it.
Mike, just quickly, my final comment is you've had a big base as far as your clientele is concerned from the days you picked it up in the late 80s when you had to quickly fulfill the role as the successor of Ricky Howard Ginsburg. But just moving on from that, you've got a role of honor in terms of your clients that have supported you through thick and thin. I mean, you're still getting new clients now in recent years that have cottoned on to the fact that, you know, you are successful as you are, and you forged some new relationships very recently, if I must say, in the last year or two. It just continues to show you that people, even as you're getting older, are still there to support you guys, you and Matthew now.
Yeah, look, for sure. And to go back earlier on your previous question about Diane, you know, not having a wife like Diane would have made it very difficult to travel. You had to have someone that could keep the home fires burning. And you talk about patrons, keep the people together, keep them happy. Because, you know, you're dealing with massive egos all the time. And, you know, you might do something that one patron doesn't like and the other one likes, and then they want to be moving horses and they're unhappy with you. So, I mean, she was a very, very integral part of things. But as to, you know, you know, it's not always been a yard that's always attracted patrons, because people always felt sort of intimidated. You know, sometimes when you're in a successful yard, they do feel intimidated by big name owners in your yards and tend not to want to come to you. You know, sometimes one does come across a little bit aggressive, but at the end of the day, they do know that they're going to get a straight service when they do come to us. We are a stable that's the success is there. We do know what we're doing. We're trying our best. We try and be as honest as possible with everybody. And it's fantastic now with a couple of new guys. Well, certainly Hollywood is one outfit that has been fantastic for the yard, showing us a lot of great support. And you know, it's really nice to get to know these guys and work with them, and just to see the same passion that you had, that same desire for that, for the industry and for South Africa and for success abroad. Lawrence Werners has also been giving us some great support. He gets on, him and Matthew get on. I think Lawrence Werners and I, if it was just me, was going to be impossible. But with Matthew, they have a great relationship, and it's working pretty well. And he's been fantastic with his support. And then there's been new guys that have come along as well. I mean, guys I've known for years, but never really have had horses. Now with Matthew around, and you know, his approach to the industry, like Dylan Chinsamy and Trevlin, Jason Muragasa, you know, all new guys. You know, I hate to leave out names, but people that have given us a bit of support now, which is, it's really fantastic. And I know it's a lot to do with the new energy in the yard, and that's all people are looking for. You know, at the end of the day, they want to be part of something that they know can be big.
Mike, my last comment, and then I'll
obviously
leave
still a lot of the old
close
patrons
up
around. You know,
because
I was just saying that there's still
yeah.
the staunch Mary Slacks, Jessica Slacks, staunch old clients still around. Even Sheikh Mohammed still got a couple of horses with us. Unfortunately, Sheikh Hamdan moved on, and there's still guys that have
well, you've got so many
that have been with us for many years, and it's, you know, some good golfing buddies these days. It's, you know, it's like a family of friends. You know?
I'm going to let Nico close, but I'm also going to say, and I hope you don't mind, but Nico, I think, and I want to say that we've been very privileged at times to know you from not only a professional side, but to have the odd shicker up at Johnny's. And as a result, we know, because we've been with you at times, and we appreciate how much you missed Matthew when he was overseas. And as a result, we now know how important it is that he's come back and that you have this new career in front of you. But I just want to say, having met and chatted to Matthew a couple of times since his return, as a father, never mind as the senior trainer, you must be so proud of Matthew, because he's a wonderful, talented young man, and I think most of us who have come into contact with him are so impressed with him. So just purely as a parent, you must be happy he's home and looking forward to the future and hugely proud of the man.
Oh, listen, Neil, you got no idea, you know. I mean, I think he's a complete trainer. You know, he hasn't got the rough edges of a Mike De Kock. He's more refined. He's more calm. He's the traveling has done him the world of good. Although it was terrible having him abroad, and I used to question myself every single day. You know, what did we allow this? Why did we let this happen? But you know, at the end of the day, if I look back, it's probably the best thing that happened to him, in that he got away a little bit, got weaned, was his own man, got a partnership in a business of his own making, of his own talent. He could have been Mark De Kock's son, but they could have just left him mucking out boxes forever. But Robbie Griffiths realized the potential in this young man and the significance that he could add and relevance he could add to his business. So he did that in his own right, of which I'm immensely proud. In a very, very, very harsh and tough environment in Australia. If you think it's tough here, it's worse there.
Mike, I can close by saying that I've truly been honored to commentate a lot of your horses home for you. And it's been such an exciting journey for me to have known you and to got to know you much closer over COVID as well. I mean, as Neil says, we got pretty tight when we formed Clocking the Gallop. You were always ready to come on and give us the info about your horses and discuss the politics at the time, which I know I didn't really want to discuss today because it's not part of the reason why you're getting the Hall of Fame. But just a serious word of congratulations to you. It's truly so well deserved. You'll go up now in the annals of history. And again, Neil will agree with me on this last point. We're privileged to be at the same generation as you. I know you two are closer in age than I am to you two, but we won't mention that and labor the point. But we're just privileged to have been around the same time as you, and a wonderful opportunity again to touch base with you and to say a big word of congratulations before you receive your award this coming weekend.
Thank you, Neil, and I really appreciate that. And I value the relationship I've had with you. It's always been one of honesty, great laughs, as you say, some unbelievable lunches that finished up late suppers. But I think that's important as I look back on my career, on relationships formed. It doesn't matter who, with owners, trainers, grooms, media. It really is. At the end of the day, it does boil down to relationships, and I enjoy and cherish the relationship I've had with you guys. It's always been a laugh. Let's put it that way.
Thanks a lot, Mike. All the best, Sam.
Thanks,
Mike. Well done.
Sweet.